Hello and welcome to Dish Shelved with Adam White. Happy 250th birthday, America. I thought that I would do that, celebrate the holiday by remembering something that many people forget, which is a real shame, which is the fact that the country was built on slavery and so forth, as we find in the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. Now, if you look up life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness on the internet, the first thing you'll see is that it is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is what the Declaration of Independence guaranteed as inalienable human rights, and that's what governments were made to make sure happen for everyone. Now, the small asterisk that they didn't include was that applied only pretty much to white males because uh, you had the basically concentration camps for Native American Indians and took all their land, destroyed their way of life, and just generally made life miserable for them. And I talked a little bit about that in my last video, so I won't go too much into that. I want to focus on Frederick Douglass because his story is one that I believe everyone should read. Uh, he gives, you can read it in a day. It's really worth your time. It's a recollection of all the things he endured as a slave. He didn't even know his actual date of birth because they never kept track of anything like that. The white people didn't, so it just didn't get kept track of. So he never knew his exact age. He could only guess. And uh, being able to read and write was a power that white people had over slaves. So they wanted to make sure they never got, educated in order to keep a tight hold on them. Now, Frederick Douglass was smart and he learned to read and write on his own. He did have some help, but he met some when he was spent time in Baltimore. Uh, he used the street kids, the white kids that knew how to read and write, and he would do things for them and get them to and like ask them questions, and then he'd use the answers to learn how to write. So he taught himself to learn to read and write, which was a very important thing because it gave him that power that white people sought to keep from him. And he still endured many terrible things as a slave. I mean, I won't go into it because the book does. And it just, the degradation forced upon these people was horrendous. And it's kind of hard to say I love this book because it's like I don't love the fact that it's about slavery and that this man was enslaved, as were so many of his people, because I don't love that. But I do think that the book is excellent. He really, he didn't just teach himself to read and write, he became a great writer. And this autobiography is evidence of that. I originally read it during my graduate school, which shows you how long it took to get to it, to have someone actually have me read it. And I didn't know any better to read it because I probably hadn't even heard of it. And because schools gloss over this kind of stuff, and all the history books, which of course are written by the white males, kind of just skim over this part about the fact that, oh, yeah, there were slaves. And, oh, it was probably for their own good and stuff like that. And you just read that and you're like, that's insane. That is just really, really a bunch of BS. Uh, and then, like I said, the women got the bad end of it too for a long time, just not quite as bad as the Native American Indians and the slaves. Uh, I think, being a former English teacher, that the autobiography that he wrote, The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, should be read in ninth grade. You can read it for English class, you can read it for history class, whatever you want to do it for. Hell, you can read it for math, I don't care. But it should be required reading for every high school freshman, because they should all be exposed to the ugly truth of slavery in the history of this nation. Uh, and this is the perfect way to do it because it's very readable. He has excellent prose, very easy to read. I just flew through it. It's hard to read too because of the material that's in it, and you feel for him the whole way and the people that he's with, and just the absolute. I don't even have the words for it, of what these slaves went through and the kind of degradation that they were put under, and the fact that so many slave owners, if they thought that a slave was unruly because they had not done something quite right, that they would beat them and sell them to an even worse slaveholder. And that was the kind of stuff that goes on that he talks about. And he says that at times he didn't have it as bad as other slaves because of the places he got sent, but other times he was just in as bad a situation as anyone else. And slavery is never a good situation, no matter what you are doing. It's just not. And that's what this book shows you, the real history of America and slavery. Now, he's got two more books, My Bondage and My Freedom and Life and Times, which cover his first autobiography just covered mostly his slavery time, and he kind of just gave you a brief uh, overview of what came after that. But these other ones go deeper into it. This is the Library of America edition. Excellent way to read it. Uh, it, like I said, everyone that's an American should read this. Every person should read this. It's that important of a book that, you don't have to get the whole collection like I did. I got the Frederick Douglass collection from uh, the Library of America because I wanted all of his writing, because I knew that's how powerful it was when I read it the first time. And then I just thought, you know what, the perfect time is the 250th birthday of America to get back to something that too many people neglect to remember. And that's why I want to do it. Now, also, in the other book that comes with this, of his speeches and writings, has his one piece of fiction called the Heroic Slave. And I read it too, and it was excellent. He could have made a living as a writer, and considering the circumstances of his upbringing, it's an amazing thing. The story, despite being about a slave named Madison Washington, he endures much of the things that slaves endured during his time as a slave in this book, And the interesting part of it is that it's all told through the eyes of white men. Like that a slave couldn't be the main character even in his own story. And again, that's the English teacher in me talking. I think that I think that's why Douglas did that, was to make a point about the fact that you couldn't even be your own, you couldn't live your own life the way you wanted to, and that it was all how it was seen by white people that dictated what you did. Now, there's some decent white people in this that he deals with, and there are some that are not so decent. And I don't want to say much because it's not a long story, but it's a very powerful story. And if you want to read a fictional story just to kind of whet your appetite for what you're going to see in the autobiographies, this would be a great way to do it. I don't know if it's printed anywhere but this, but it was an excellent story too. But the main thing is to read a narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, because again, I think it's one of the most important books that there is, uh, because it tells you the real history of slavery and what it was done in America. And you think on this time of reflection of about America and 250 years of it, and you think about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and then think about all the people that was taken away from, because it just is unconscionable what was done to the Native American Indians, what was done to the black people, the slaves, even black people that were free at the time were treated like slaves. And even, and like I said, even the women were left out for the most part, for a long, long time. And that's a subject for another time, though. But read this book. You know, get a little real education. Like I said, it's very informative to read. It's easy to read because the prose is so good. And I also wanted to say that this is my second attempt at making this video. I made a 20-minute video and I sounded like an idiot. Now, I can't say that I don't still sound like an idiot, because I usually do anyway, but I am very serious about reading this book and what it means to America to remember what happened so that it never happens again, because there's so many things going on in today's world where people are treated as less than human. And they say, people say, oh, it's because of their race and all this. Well, there's only one race, and that's the human race, and we're all part of it. So it's time we started acting like it. It's past time. But sorry to get so political, but I'm not sorry that I chose to read this book, because it's excellent and I think you should read it. And if you know of any other pieces of history from America that have good books written about them, list it in the comments. I'm always interested in things that are well told and that really shed a light on just how wrong it was to do these things to other human beings. So I won't go any longer about it, because I'm starting to repeat myself, but autobiography, the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, read it. I highly recommend the Library of America set that has all his writings in it. He was a great writer. He had great speeches. and articles, and he was an excellent author. And again, when you think of what he had endured and what he came through to become such an orator and storyteller, that it really is amazing. And he was an amazing man, and he went from being a slave to being an advisor to President Lincoln, and he is an amazing person. So please read this book, read all of his stuff. uh, anyway, happy 4th of July, everyone, and happy 250th birthday, America. And hopefully, this will make you want to read this book, because everybody should. Thank you for hanging out with me. Sorry if I got too political, but I feel really strongly about it. And thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope to catch you sooner than later.